Policy and Impact at Demos saying we need to do more to encourage flexible working, increase provision of occupational health and encourage employees to monitor the well-being of their workers. I mean, that all sounds like pretty positive stuff that we should be doing, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I think the key there, as the person from Demos pointed out, is about flexible working. We don't have enough flexible working today. Certainly the TUC has been banging on about this in relation to maternity, for example, and working mothers. And I think that when it comes to older people, clearly there's a lot of experience there that would certainly benefit the economy, as the article points out. But it's not just a case of waving a magic wand. There's actually got to be fundamental change, and one of those is actually about rights. I know that Angela Rayner from the Labour Party the other day talked about having flexible working as part of the new Day One rights. Some people say that her package of measures didn't go far enough, but certainly I think that will help in getting these older people back into work.
Okay, let's move on. We'll have a look at the, where should we go next? Let's have a look at the Telegraph and this story about Liz Truss. Remember her? we do remember. Many people cannot forget. She's apparently launched a broadside against Rishi Sunak, claiming he spent £35 billion more than she would have as Prime Minister. What do we make of this, Lester?
Well, I think that it's really about Liz Truss being the standard bearer for a smaller state, and that's clearly what she and her supporters want to do. But I think that a lot of people will be exasperated by her suggestion that the government is throwing too much money at the NHS and schools, particularly with the NHS crumbling, ambulances not turning up, and schools, of course, we've got the big crisis with RAC concrete. So a lot of this points to underinvestment, but clearly Liz Truss wants to move in the other direction. So I'm not sure what lessons that she's learned from her disastrous budget, but certainly she continues to be putting her head over the parapet.
And saying that she wouldn't have overseen such an overspend in her description if she were Prime Minister.
Yes, and it seems that she's sort of clearly maintained her confidence in her ability to be able to chart a different path. She talks quite sort of tough language about how she would have not allowed any new spending to take place, taking a tough approach, and that's very much stylistic of, former Prime Minister Liz Truss in the tough rhetoric. But it also has this interesting little snippet about her saying she was prevented from seeing through, or the Telegraph reporting she was prevented from seeing through some of the policies she wanted to enact because of criticisms from fairly sort of junior members of her cabinet. So I think this points to some of the realities that happen in politics when, even though you might have your quite sort of tough language and tough approach, that might sort of hit the skids, so to speak, when it comes to dealing with your cabinet, your backbenchers, and the realities of politics.
Which actually saying that she was prevented from seeing through policy after senior Tories like Penny Mordaunt broke ranks to oppose her ideas. That'd be interesting to get Penny Mordaunt's take on that, wouldn't it?
Well, yes. And I mean, it's going to be quite an interesting speech to the IFG, so I wonder if Westminster eyes will be peeled.
Yes, I'm sure we'll be reporting on that tomorrow, that much anticipated speech. From there, shall we have a look at the story also on the front page of the Telegraph? This is the fact that not a single suspect has been prosecuted in the UK for spying for China, compared with almost 150 in the US in the past 3 years. And put this into context with the recent stories we've been seeing regarding China, Lester.
That's right, and of course those stories that you refer to the arrest of parliamentary researcher for allegedly spying, and this story itself suggests that Britain hasn't been prosecuting Chinese spies, which will lead some people perhaps to say that, or to suspect that Britain might be going a bit softer on China. But I think that the important issue really in relation to China is not necessarily around spies. It's actually about the key question about whether we're actually we have to do, we can't ignore China. China is growing massively as an economic force, and we are a small country that's exited the European Union. So in that context, while there will always be a bit of a friction in relation to the spying, understandably so, the bigger issue is about Chinese-British cooperation, and I think that that's something which Britain as a whole, in terms of our public debate, haven't really grappled with, because the stories that we've been hearing have always been about conflict, whether it be about IT companies, mobile phone companies, and suspicions about use of data. And that's really where the debate is, which is not necessarily in the right place for a country which desperately needs to be striking trade deals.
And Nita, where do you think that the government is in relation to its relationship with China at this point, and how it's perceived externally? Because we obviously know James Cleverly